Sleeping King's Eye Stab. On December 23, 679, King Dagobert II of Austrasia was weary from a long hunt near Stenay, France. The day had been exhausting. He had spent hours tracking game through the forest with his men. As evening approached, the king decided to rest before continuing the journey home. He found a quiet spot by a stream under a tree. The water moved gently over stones. The shade offered relief from the day's exertion. Dagobert lay down and closed his eyes. His godson moved through the trees. The young man approached silently while the king slept. He carried a lance. No guard stood watch at that moment. No one challenged his presence. He was trusted. He was family. The godson positioned himself carefully. Then he drove the weapon forward with force. The lance pierced directly through the king's eye. The strike was precise and immediately fatal. There was no struggle, no warning. The king died where he lay by the stream. The act was discovered shortly after. The killer had ended one of the last Merovingian kings. Dagobert's brief resurgence of the ancient line was finished in a single violent moment. The godson fled the scene. No arrest was ever made. No trial was ever held. The young man who committed the murder was never brought to justice. His reasons remained unclear to historians. Power politics of the 7th century left few detailed records. The motive behind the assassination became one of medieval France's enduring mysteries. Some suspected rival noble families. Others pointed to internal disputes within the Merovingian court. The church may have played a role. Alliances shifted constantly in that era. But the godson took his reasons with him. The truth died with King Dagobert by that stream. The killer walked free, and the murder was never solved. Teen King's Stirrup Drag. On March 18, 978, King Edward the Martyr arrived at Corfe Castle in Dorset, England. He was young, barely into his teenage years, and had ruled for only a few years. He came to visit his half-brother Ethelred and his stepmother Elfthrith. The visit appeared friendly. Edward rode up to the castle entrance, still mounted on his horse. A servant brought him a cup of mead as a gesture of hospitality. He remained in the saddle while he drank. That was when the attack came. An assassin moved forward quickly from the shadows near the gate. The blade drove into Edward's back. The strike was sudden and deep. The young king gasped. His horse reacted instantly to the violence and commotion. The animal reared up in terror and bolted away from the castle. Edward dropped the cup. His body lurched forward, but his foot became tangled in the stirrup. He could not free himself. The horse ran wildly into the darkness. Edward was dragged behind. His body bounced and scraped across rough terrain. Stones tore at him. The ground was unforgiving. The horse continued running in panic for some distance before finally stopping. By then, the damage was done. Edward the Martyr died somewhere along that brutal path, pulled helplessly behind his own mount. His body was discovered later. The circumstances pointed clearly to murder. Suspicion immediately fell on those closest to the crime. Elfthrith had reason to want Edward dead. Her own son, Ethelred, would inherit the throne with Edward gone. The stepmother became the primary suspect in whispers throughout the kingdom. But no formal accusation was ever made. No arrest followed. No trial was held. The mastermind behind the assassination was never officially identified. The killer who struck the blow vanished into history unnamed. Prince thrown from balcony. On September 18, 1345, Andrew of Hungary was staying at a hunting lodge in Aversa, Italy. He was married to Queen Joanna I of Naples. The couple's relationship had grown tense over questions of power and succession. Andrew wanted to be crowned king, but Joanna and her advisors resisted. That night, the prince retired to his bedroom in the lodge. The building was quiet. Most of the household had settled in for the evening. Sometime in the middle of the night, conspirators made their move. They lured Andrew from his bedroom with a false summons or urgent message. The exact words used were never recorded. Andrew stepped out into the hallway. The moment he crossed the threshold, someone barred the door behind him. He was trapped. Multiple attackers surrounded him in the corridor. They grabbed him. He struggled, but there were too many. They wrapped a silk cord around his neck and pulled tight. The strangulation was deliberate and methodical. Andrew's resistance weakened. His body went limp. The conspirators then carried him to a nearby balcony. They lifted his lifeless form over the railing. They let go. Andrew's body fell from the balcony into the garden below. Servants discovered him there in the morning light. The death appeared suspicious immediately. Investigators questioned those present at the lodge. Multiple people had been involved. That much was clear. But their identities remained murky. Accusations flew toward Queen Joanna. Some believed she had ordered the murder to rid herself of an unwanted husband. She was arrested and brought before papal authorities for judgment. After examination of the evidence, Joanna was formally acquitted. The church found insufficient proof of her direct involvement, but the actual murderers were never definitively identified. No one was punished. The conspiracy remained unsolved. Andrew of Hungary's killers walked free. Crusader slain in street. On April 28, 1192, Conrad of Montferrat walked through the narrow streets of Tyre in present-day Lebanon. He was a powerful nobleman and military commander during the Third Crusade. Just days earlier, he had been elected king of Jerusalem. His coronation was scheduled soon. That evening, Conrad was returning home through the city. The streets were tight and winding. Buildings pressed close on both sides. Two men appeared ahead of him. They wore the simple robes of monks. Nothing about their appearance seemed threatening. Religious men were common in the Holy Land. They walked closer. Conrad's guards were nearby, but not immediately beside him. Then the false monks moved. They pulled daggers from beneath their robes. The blades came out fast. They lunged at Conrad and stabbed him repeatedly. The attack was swift and coordinated. The guards rushed forward, but the damage was already done. Conrad fell. His wounds were severe and numerous. The dying nobleman was carried away from the street. Medical help could do nothing. Conrad of Montferrat died from the dagger strikes. The two assassins were captured quickly. Under intense questioning and a very uncomfortable time, they revealed their affiliation. They confessed they were members of the Assassination, a secretive sect of killers. They had been sent by the figure known as the Old Man of the Mountain, the leader of their order, but the assassins insisted they were hired. Someone else had paid for the murder. The true client was never identified. Suspicion fell on multiple powerful figures. Richard the Lionheart of England was accused by some. Others pointed to rival Crusader lords. Political enemies within the Crusader states had motives, but no proof emerged. The Assassination took contracts from whoever paid. The identity of Conrad's true killer remained one of the Crusade's greatest unsolved mysteries. Legate speared from behind. On January 15, 1208, Pierre de Castelnau was preparing to cross the Rhône River in Languedoc, France. He served as a papal legate, a direct representative of Pope Innocent III. His mission was to suppress the Cathar heresy spreading through southern France. The day before, Pierre had engaged in a heated argument with Raymond VI, the Count of Toulouse. The Count resented the church's interference in his territory. The confrontation had been tense and public. Threats were exchanged. No resolution was reached. The next morning, Pierre made his way to the river crossing. He had attendants with him, but security was minimal. As he approached the water's edge, a rider on horseback appeared behind him. The horseman spurred his mount forward at speed. He charged directly at the legate. Pierre had no time to react or move aside. The rider carried a lance. He drove the weapon forward with full force. The lance pierced through Pierre's back. The strike went deep. Pierre collapsed immediately from the blow. His attendants rushed to him, but the wound was mortal. Pierre de Castelnau died at the river crossing. The horseback assailant fled the scene before anyone could stop him. His identity was never established. The killing appeared deliberate and planned. Suspicion fell heavily on Count Raymond. The timing was obvious. The argument had occurred just hours before. Raymond had made his anger clear, but no evidence directly linked him to the murder. No witness could name the rider. No confession was extracted. The assassin disappeared into the countryside and was never caught. The violence went unpunished, but the consequences were enormous. Pope Innocent III declared a crusade against the Cathars in response to Pierre's murder. The Albigensian Crusade devastated southern France for decades. Thousands died in the religious conflict that followed, all triggered by one unknown killer with a lance. Duke dumped in river. On June 14, 1497, Giovanni Borgia, the Duke of Gandia, attended a dinner party in Rome. He was the eldest son of Pope Alexander VI and held significant power within the papal court. That evening, he dined with his mother and his brother Cesare Borgia. The gathering appeared ordinary. After the meal ended, Giovanni left the building and rode away. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. Days passed with no word from the Duke. His family grew concerned. Then his body was discovered in the Tiber River. Fishermen pulled the corpse from the water. Giovanni's throat had been cut. 9 stab wounds covered his torso. The violence was excessive and personal. His clothes were still on his body. His money and jewelry remained untouched. Robbery was not the motive. During the investigation, authorities located a boatman who worked along the river. He admitted he had witnessed something unusual that night. He saw several men arrive at the riverbank after dark. They carried what appeared to be a body. They threw it into the Tiber. The boatman watched but did not report what he saw. He explained that bodies being dumped in the river were common sights in Rome. He thought nothing of it. Suspicion immediately fell on Cesare Borgia. The brothers had a complicated relationship. Cesare was ambitious and ruthless. Giovanni's death would benefit him politically. Many believed Cesare had ordered the murder. Pope Alexander launched an investigation, but within days, he abruptly shut it down. No official findings were released. No arrests were made. The Pope declared the matter closed. Cesare Borgia was never formally charged. The killer who slit Giovanni's throat and stabbed him 9 times was never named. The murder remained unsolved. Pontiff's deadly sweet figs. On July 7, 1304, Pope Benedict XI was residing in Perugia, Italy. His papacy had been brief, lasting less than a year. He had inherited a complicated political situation from his predecessor. The French King Philip IV had been in bitter conflict with the previous pope. Benedict had recently taken a decisive action. He had excommunicated several enemies of his predecessor, including powerful French supporters. The move angered King Philip and his allies. Tensions were high. That day, someone brought the Pope a plate of fresh figs. The fruit appeared normal. Figs were a common delicacy in Italy during summer months. Benedict ate them. Within moments, he fell violently ill. The sickness came on suddenly and intensely. His condition deteriorated rapidly. He suffered in agony. Medical attendants could do nothing to help him. The symptoms suggested poisoning, though no diagnosis could be confirmed at the time. Pope Benedict XI died that same day. Rumors spread immediately throughout Perugia and beyond. Many believed the figs had been poisoned. The timing was deeply suspicious. Benedict had just taken actions against French interests. King Philip had means and motive. Whispers pointed to agents of the French crown. Some suspected they had infiltrated the papal household. Others believed Italian conspirators had acted on behalf of France. The method was elegant and difficult to trace. Poisoned food left little evidence, but no investigation produced results. No culprit was ever identified. No confession was obtained. No servant was arrested. The source of the figs remained unknown. Whether poison was truly involved could not be proven. Pope Benedict's sudden death, after eating the fruit, became one of the great mysteries of medieval papal history. The poisoned figs entered legend. The truth died with Benedict in Perugia. His killer, if there was one, was never caught. Last royal stabbed alone. On August 4th, 1306, Wenceslaus III of Bohemia was resting in a dean's house in Olomouc, located in present-day Czech Republic. He was young, only 16 years old, and ruled as King of Bohemia, Poland, and Hungary. The weight of 3 crowns sat on the shoulders of a teenager. That day, Wenceslaus had taken quarters in the residence for rest. Security should have been tight around a king of his stature, but at some point he found himself unguarded. An assassin entered the building. How the killer gained access was never determined. He made his way to where Wenceslaus was staying. The young king had no protection at that critical moment. The assassin struck quickly. He drove a blade into Wenceslaus's chest. Then he stabbed again and again. 3 times the weapon pierced the king's body. The wounds were precise and fatal. Wenceslaus died rapidly from the attack. The commotion drew guards immediately. They rushed into the room within seconds. They found the assassin still present. Before any questions could be asked, the guards cut him down. The killer died on the spot. His identity was never established. He carried no documents. No one recognized him. More importantly, he died before he could speak. Whatever he knew about who sent him was lost forever. The murder investigation yielded nothing useful. The dead assassin provided no answers. Suspects were numerous. Wenceslaus had enemies throughout his 3 kingdoms. Rival noble houses had motives. Foreign powers stood to benefit from his death. But without the killer's testimony, all leads went nowhere. The death of Wenceslaus III had enormous consequences. He was the last male member of the Przemyslid dynasty. The ancient royal line that had ruled Bohemia for centuries ended with 3 stab wounds in Olomouc. The mastermind behind the assassination was never found.